A daring space mission to Saturn's moon takes a terrifying turn when astronauts discover a 47-million-year-old frozen spaceship, unlocking secrets that could destroy everything they know about space and life itself. Today, I'll be recapping the awesome 2024 sci-fi thriller film Slingshot, so keep your eyes wide open and stay safe. Drop a comment with your next movie request, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more recaps. Astronaut John wakes up from a deep hibernation cycle aboard the spacecraft Odyssey 1, which is on a long journey to Titan, one of Saturn's moons. The mission is simple, but crucial. Travel to Titan, gather tons of valuable natural resources like methane, and bring them back to Earth. Because the trip takes years, the crew follows a strict sleep schedule. Every 90 days, they wake up to check the ship, send reports to Earth, and make sure everything is running smoothly before going back into a drug-induced hibernation. John catches up with the rest of the crew, Captain Franks, who leads the mission, and Nash, an expert in aeronautics. John is worried because the hibernation made him forget his girlfriend Zoe's last name, and he keeps hearing her voice whispering to him. Nash reassures John, telling him that the powerful drugs used to make them sleep mess with everyone's memory and can have strange effects, but John will remember everything eventually. The crew checks the ship's systems and sends a report to Earth, confirming they are still on track for the hardest part of their mission, a slingshot maneuver around Jupiter to get them speeding toward Titan. John feels a sense of relief when he suddenly remembers Zoe's last name after thinking back to how they met. With that, the crew goes back into hibernation. During the next wake-up cycle, John is the first to wake up, but he gets hit in the head by a falling ceiling panel. Captain Franks and Nash find him knocked out cold, and they notice that the ship seems to have been hit by something. There's damage to the hull and some parts inside the ship. However, the ship's computers don't show any sign of an impact or any damage. Captain Franks thinks the ship might have warped because of the pressure on its structure. Nash starts to get more and more worried, thinking the ship's computer system and structure are in danger. He's convinced the ship won't be able to handle the pressure when they try the slingshot maneuver, and that the crew will die if they keep going to Titan. Nash tries to convince John to join him in going against Captain Franks. He suggests they wake up 12 hours early from their hibernation pods to reprogram the ship so it can slingshot back toward Earth, and they can go home. John agrees to help, but he warns Nash that he will only go along with the plan if there's solid proof that the ship is really in trouble. John and Nash wake up early from their hibernation. Nash completely loses it, saying they can't trust the ship's systems and that they're all going to die. But John tells him there's not enough proof of any damage and believes they should stick to their mission. Just then, Captain Franks shows up. It turns out he's been watching the crew the whole time and knew about their plan to wake up early. So, he woke up early too, to stop them. Captain Franks and John manage to complete the slingshot maneuver, even though Nash strongly disagrees. Nash gets even more paranoid, convinced that they will all die if they don't turn back to Earth. Meanwhile, John's condition is getting worse. He starts to hallucinate, seeing Zoe on the ship and having vivid dreams that the ship took damage and that he was sucked into the empty space outside. After everything calms down, the crew goes back into hibernation. When the crew wakes up again, it's clear that Nash is in worse shape. He can't remember his parents' names or anything about his life. He tells John that there's a problem with the ship's reactors, and if it's not fixed, they'll never make it to Titan. He asks John to double-check his findings. John notices how badly Nash's mind is slipping, but his own condition is getting worse too. Captain Franks checks the reactor's performance and then reveals that the problem was caused by someone. He pulls out a gun and says that John's passcode was used to reduce the reactor's power. Captain Franks thinks Nash used John's code to mess with the ship on purpose, and he says he won't let anyone stop their mission. He decides that Nash must go back into hibernation to prevent any more problems. Captain Franks forces both men to their hibernation pods while threatening them with the gun. John is put to sleep first, and as the drugs start to take effect, he sees something horrifying. Captain Franks brutally attacks Nash, and it looks like he might have killed him. John is too drugged to stop it, and everything fades away as he falls back into deep sleep. Nash is missing when the crew wakes up next. Captain Franks carries his pistol everywhere, acting aggressive and saying their mission cannot be stopped. John is starting to lose his grip on reality, having strange hallucinations where he hears Zoe trying to talk to him through the radios and thinks his body is changing. They're still on their way to Titan, but they haven't been able to reach Earth since the first time they woke up. Captain Franks tells John that he's losing his mind and focus. He shocks John by saying Zoe wasn't real and was just a test to see if John was fit for the mission. John refuses to believe it and becomes suspicious. He thinks Captain Franks might have killed Nash instead of just putting him back into sleep. John demands to see Nash before he goes back into hibernation. John and Captain Franks get into a violent struggle, but John manages to overpower Captain Franks. He then uses the computer to find out where Nash is and what's happening. The computer shocks him by saying Nash is fine and on the bridge with the other two men. Then, the computer reveals something even more shocking. This was supposed to be a one-man mission, and John has actually been alone the whole time. John's full name is Captain John Nash Franks, and everything he thought he knew was just a hallucination from the first hibernation cycle. John, feeling like he's losing control and not sure what's real anymore, pleads with Zoe for help over the short-distance radios. To his surprise, Zoe responds. She tells John that he's not really in space. He's been tricked and is actually in a fake ship under the company's New Mexico base, testing the hibernation cycles and the effects of isolation before the real mission. Zoe explains that an earthquake damaged the tunnel and the communication lines to the simulation ship. This has caused the hibernation chamber to give him too much of the drug, without the surface being able to adjust it, which is why his mind is starting to break down. Zoe tells John to escape through the airlock and leave the fake ship. She says he should force their employers to pick him up early. Just then, a bloody Captain Frank shows up and tells John to stay focused on the mission. He points out that John has been hallucinating, and this might just be another part of that. Captain Franks explains that John has made up a story that sounds just real enough to believe, something that explains everything John wants to hear. John decides to leave through the airlock. When he steps out, he's right. He's not in space at all. Instead, he finds himself in an underground area. As he heads toward a red emergency light and climbs a ladder, John suddenly has a clear moment. He realizes that everything he saw before was just a hallucination. But before he can do anything, he gets sucked out of the airlock and into the cold emptiness of space. So, which awesome movie should we recap next? Drop your suggestions in the comments below and let's make it happen. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button so you never miss out on our movie recaps. We've got plenty more coming your way. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Produced by Warner Movie Recaps 2.